I have a problem, and I'm betting that many of you share it. Although yours might take a different form and/or severity level, I'm sure that most of us have at least a few shows that we've always wanted to watch. Shows that we've been quote-unquote planning to watch for years, but still haven't, with an ever-growing list of just such shows. I'd like to illustrate for you today just how dysfunctional, how absurd today's example is. You see, I love Cowboy Bebop. I would even go so far as to say that it helped me to sort out my feelings during a difficult time. I refuse to elaborate further. I love Samurai Champloo. I thought Terror in Resonance was an interesting and emotional ride as well, no matter how many of my favorite analytical YouTubers of the day tried to convince me that it had disappointed our admittedly absurd expectations of a new Watanabe series. And currently, I thirst for the release of the new Lazarus Project, like a fish drowning in the desert. Hell, I even thought that the two Blade Runner spin-offs were entertaining enough, even if I didn't finish the one that actually had more than one episode. Disregard that. The point is that I seem to love just about everything that Shinichiro Watanabe puts his hands on, critically acclaimed or not. My man! And yet, I still haven't watched Space Dandy. I know with 99.999% assurance that I would like it, and not just because it's critically acclaimed. It's because it's critically acclaimed, and, more importantly, it clearly checks so many boxes that I personally care about. It promises to push so many of my specific buttons, so to speak. It's directed by someone whose work I love consistently. It's sci-fi, the genre which makes up the largest chunk of my favorites. It clearly doesn't take itself too seriously. It's unapologetically juvenile with its fan service and its humor. It's got an awesome visual aesthetic, and I've heard that it's got pathos, soul, and emotion as the cherry on top, just like all of the Watanabe greats. I've thus far performed the miracle of having not been spoiled on any key plot points. In fact, I'm specifically going to go out of my way to delegate this video to my editor, and I'm going to make him use Space Dandy footage, so that if he hasn't watched it yet, he gets spoiled instead.
Exactly as planned.
Many of the YouTube personalities who got me as deep into anime as I am today, whose tastes I tend to share closely, all seem to love it. In the words of Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching some 3,000 years ago. Therefore, Cowboy Bebop is great, Samurai Champloo is great, Space Dandy is also great. These are the three great powers of Shinichiro Watanabe, and Space Dandy is one of them. Truly wise words from one of the ancient masters. Probably. I have every reason imaginable to watch Space Dandy ASAP, so why have I still not watched it? Why is it still sitting in my ever more bloated plan to watch list? Why in tarnation do I continue to do this year after year? With dozens of shows, movies, and manga that I'm already convinced I'd enjoy and find meaning in.
Why, oh God?
How could this happen?
I could make excuses about how I'm saving shows like this for a rainy day or whatever. When I do watch old shows, I tend to fall back on what's familiar, instead rewatching my favorites. Maybe I have an irrational fear that I'll somehow completely exhaust the pool of time-proven shows that I can depend on liking, when I need that fresh bump of anime at the end of an especially hard week. The pool of critically acclaimed, truly great classics heralded as conventionally good, and two, the shows which promise to speak to me on such a hyper-specific level that they could only exist in the medium of anime. Everything that I tell myself I've always wanted to watch. Everything in my ever more growing plan to watch list. I'm positive that there is a real element of procrastination contributing to the problem, but I think that you and I both know deep down what the real heart of the matter more likely is. It's because my backlog is already a mile long, and there are like, 240 or so new anime every year? We have too many choices, and I think that many of us often feel as though we're under some sick obligation to continue taste testing everything, or at least every other thing that anyone says we should watch. Sometimes jumping ship or putting on hold shows that we're already enjoying, even when the new recommendation or the new seasonal thing might not even look like anything we would like. We jump back and forth from this show to that and the other, without finishing half of what we started, until we don't remember where we left off or which ones we actually even started in some cases. It's all wholly irrational. Now, don't misunderstand, I still genuinely enjoy the process of taste testing anime, most of the time. I often feel that the greatest strength of anime is that it can be just about anything, and appeal to just about anyone if the right show finds the right person. This is one major reason that I like getting a small taste of essentially anything that piques even a little of my interest with each new season. You really never know when that one show is going to hit you like a ton of bricks out of nowhere. And it's difficult, especially for someone with my broad and varied tastes in anime, to just have someone curate what I should watch. I do not want to come off as overly cynical or as a jaded purist on this point on my longing to watch more of those old shows that I know that I should and want to watch. I feel that this is relevant because I realize that many of my fellow senior citizens in the anime community believe that almost nothing airing today is as good as the classics. I disagree. Sure, most of my favorites aired between the late 80s and early 2010s. However, between 2022 and 2024 alone, I have not just liked, but absolutely adored Bocchi the Rock, Chainsaw Man, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Ya Boy Kong Ming, Call of the Night, Heavenly Delusion, Kaiju No. 8, Dungeon Meshi, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Gushing Over Magical Girls, Shangri-La Frontier, Train to the End of the World, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, Oshi no Ko, My Dress Up Darling, Makeine, Made in Abyss Season 2, Aharin is Undecipherable, The Eminence in Shadow, Kamikatsu, Go-Go Loser Ranger, Jujutsu Kaisen's second and Attack on Titan's final seasons, and the list could go on. I adored many of these shows to the point that I found myself rewatching my favorite scenes or even episodes repeatedly. I'm currently watching Orb on the Movements of the Earth and the Dandadan anime adaptation, and I could easily see those two also coming out as 10s for me by the end of the season. I know that different groups are mixed on it, but I'm also quite enjoying Dragon Ball Daima and have really been appreciating the love and attention that the best episodes of Bleach's 1000-Year Blood War arc have been receiving. And that's just a sample from a few years. If anything, I'm quite frankly overwhelmed as each new season passes, still staring at some of those seasonal shows knowing that I still need to finish or simply watch more of them at some point. Not every season, but some seasons, Fall 2022 for example,
I will eat your ass!
have been so packed with shows that I felt genuinely excited about that I could not possibly keep up with every show I was genuinely enjoying. But still, that's one season. One season! If anything, we are often simply spoiled for choice. It is an awesome time to be a fan of shonen, both new and old, and it's an awesome time to be a fan of those hyper-specific shows that resonate with us on the deepest possible levels, or scratch that oh so weird and particular, how does this exist kind of itch.
あれは御霊様が生み出した。
Even if a lot of generic trash is padding things out as well.
まさか軌道と速さが全部違う。
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Nonetheless, there's a clear lack of prioritization in my consumption of shows that I'm maximally confident I would find truly meaningful. And therein lies the real problem. A lack of priorities or a well-defined aim, where it concerns my consumption of Chinese cartoons. Shows that hook me immediately are sometimes superseded by series I find myself watching or reading until they quote-unquote get good, or until I at least understand the appeal. Shows that appeal to me specifically are sometimes replaced by shows that I watch almost solely because they get big numbers on the interweb, aka appeal to more general audiences. Many of us will even find ourselves hate watching at the expense of watching or continuing something we were already loving. You may find yourself questioning if much of this is only because I make videos on the subject and have struggled and failed multiple times to finish making a seasonal roundup video in a reasonable time frame, but I don't think that covers it fully. I know that I'm not the only one who's been here, because I've talked to people who struggle to watch shows they're sure that they'd love, who have planned to watch lists that they only ever add to, and seldom, if ever, actually pull shows to watch from. I'm reminded of my favorite, and in my opinion the most relatable arc, of Bunny Girl Senpai. This arc fixates on Koga, the cutie with the booty who cannot live without her cell phone. She finds herself sleep deprived because she was up late engaged in group chats and the latest YouTube videos. She fears she'll be in trouble if she can't keep up with the conversation. She agonizes over her own self-image, as well as her ability to properly represent herself and always have an opinion on what's currently relevant. She finds herself so fixated on current trends and the record of experience that she doesn't take the time to truly enjoy the fleeting experience itself. I related hard to this during my first viewing, given how much time I spent trying to get the perfect shots of my food, only to find myself nuking the actual food itself afterwards. I find myself now praising the Lord that I've all but given up on social media, and resign myself to the fact that I can always get back to other hobbies that I enjoy later. The Instagram photography itself, for example. I deleted the apps from my phone because quite frankly, it's not improving my quality of life. And it's just not a priority next to these videos, my music, work, and taking the time to actually enjoy anime and manga and video games that I like occasionally. Life tip: delete your social media apps and start reading manga in your downtime instead. You can thank me later. Speaking of priorities, anime and the actual point of all this,
Bro, what are you talking about?
is it really necessary to watch all of these? Is it necessary to continue watching something I'm not really enjoying when I'm spoiled for choice? Is it necessary to give a full hour of my time to a 3-episode test of a seasonal anime I might not have even enjoyed the first episode of? Is there really any reason that I need to watch every single anime? Or every one that I'm randomly recommended? Or could I just as easily watch something I've always wanted to watch? Or go online with the genre, tags, premise, studio, directors, staff members, and OST at my fingertips, check out some footage to get an idea of the style and animation quality, and answer that simple question. Do I really care more about having a fully educated opinion on this random show than finally watching Perfect Blue? Or the original Mobile Suit Gundam? Or finishing Mob Psycho 100? Or, watching every Ghibli film I haven't watched yet? Probably not. And so of course this is the part where I'm supposed to tell you that I have a real, concrete solution that can actually fix this abstract problem. And I think I actually do for once. It's what I'm going to continue doing myself, and it's a key technique in having real priorities. It's what someone like Warren Buffett does when setting goals. It's a concept I first heard from Alex Hormozy. Say what you want about the guy, but this has helped me to be far more productive in other facets of my life, including writing music and the production of videos on this channel. That is, of course, when I've actually went through with it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a list. Stop. Do not make the list on Mal or AniList, at least at first. Don't make it in Google Docs either. Write it down on paper, like a fucking doctor.
Like a doctor. Like a doctor. You live your fucking life like a doctor.
Get your pen or pencil, get your paper, write down 25 anime series or movies that you want to watch but have been putting off. Now you're going to circle the 5 and only 5 most important ones. Now you have an A list, the 5 most important, and a B list consisting of the remaining 20. Now this next part is a deceptively simple distinction, but perhaps the most important part of this whole process. I want you to commit fully and not allow yourself to watch anything from the B list until you've watched everything on the A list. In short, think of your B list as your avoid at all costs list. Upon completion, you can add 5 more of those items to the A list and choose a new 5 choices for your new B list. And rinse and repeat. You'll find that by focusing on fewer and fewer goals at a time, you'll actually get far more done, more efficiently. It probably wouldn't hurt to watch the shorter items within those 5 A-list items first as well. Keep in mind that this doesn't necessarily have to apply to old shows or anything in particular. Now I would stick strictly to this process if you have similar issues, at least for the time being, but if you do go on to use your Mal or AniList accounts for this, here's what I think you should do. Take everything, and I mean everything, in your currently watching and plan to watch tabs and move them all to your on hold or paused lists. And don't even think about the distinction between on hold and dropped if it makes you hesitate or slows you down. Then go back to that watching or plan to watch list and pick the 5 and only 5 that you want to watch right now. These 5, at least for now, are the only ones that you will move to your currently watching list. When you've actually finished those, then we can talk about adding more again. And of course, because I know that none of us can live without current thing, you're free to keep these separate from your seasonal watches. You might manage those by pausing or putting on hold the seasonals that you're caught up with at any given time, and always set them as organized by last updated, which I think you can only really do proper in the AniList app.
Don't beat.
I think that part of the secret to making this work is going to be only watching seasonally the shows that you're genuinely excited about, the shows that you can't wait to watch the next episode of. Put those shows in your watching list on the AniList app, and when a notification pops, jump on it as soon as possible. If you're genuinely excited about the shows and you have any free time at all, these shows will kinda take care of themselves. Anything else probably shouldn't supersede a show that you've always wanted to watch, and you can always just binge it after the season wraps. Expand the system however you want. But if you find it spiraling out of control and can't keep up with them, you need to once again wipe that list clean and finish the 5 that are actually important. Even if you graduate from the system, I doubt that you can watch 25 shows at the same time. Let's be reasonable. And of course, this personal system of mine is obviously malleable as to which lists you use and how you use them. Knock yourself out changing it up, but keep it absolutely basic to begin with. Pencil and paper, 5 on the A list and 20 on the B list.
Now you're a man! Now you're a moron!
So, why does this work?
What are you talking about?
Well, in the words of Warren Buffett himself, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Prioritization is, after all, the art of saying no to almost everything. Bonus points for focusing on one thing at a time. extra bonus points for applying the skill to something that actually matters and not just trying to watch Japanese cartoons more efficiently. Anyway, which anime do you question yourself over having not watched yet? I've only just recently managed to break through a few seasons into the Monogatari series, which I am loving and loved every time I started it. Just couldn't seem to break through the first episodes at the time for some reason. Also, has anything else in particular managed to help you manage this problem? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. As for me, I'm off to watch some Space Dandy. See ya, Space Cowboy. Anyway, next week we'll be discussing the 20 currently airing isekai that you should be watching.
I didn't learn anything.